Hey guys, I just got back home with my latest haul of stuff. Out of the blue last night, a fellow Video Karma member contacted me and asked me if I was interested in a set of Riders television service manuals. Now, just recently, I got my very first volume, Volume 2. Prior to that, I had heard of them, but I've never actually saw one up close and personal. The Volume 2 is a bit smaller than this. It's 8.5 by 11, whereas these are more like 11 by 17, I think. And didn't know that there were 27 or 28 volumes. I didn't get all of them. I don't think my car suspension could have handled it, but I got quite a few. So I'll have to haul these up inside and give you a better look at them. But basically, they're just packed with schematics and service info and so on. With basically every TV made from like 46 to the early 60s, I think. Now, all these came out of an old radio and TV and an electronic service shop. Been around for decades. In fact, I had visited it back in the 80s and kind of forgot about it. Well, turns out that like they're foreclosing the building, and the place had been vandalized. It was leaking water and whatnot, and well, I got to poke around through what was left, and so in addition to the books, found an old metal portable, I think it's an Admiral black and white TV, found some closed circuit video cameras, but potentially the most interesting find is in the passenger seat. Down in the basement of this building, things were really nasty. A lot of boxes had fallen over, and seepage had got in, and that was just a general mess from decades of decay. But what was down there was a lot of vacuum tubes. Now, a lot of them had been smashed on the ground, rusted bases and so on, but I went through and I think I got a nice selection. Basically, I grabbed all the octals and larger I could find. Some of them I recognized as like the 6AS7, I think that's a damper tube and so on. And got a few of the older styles, like this little 4-pin jobber. So I think I'll save the manuals for another day. So that's gonna break my back to haul all those up. Plus, I don't know really where I'm gonna put them all. But this will certainly be fun to go through. So I'm gonna haul these up inside, take a closer look at them. Oh, by the way, this is my car. It's a 1996 Volkswagen GTI. Believe it or not, every single item in my collection has been hauled home in this car, even my big GE 802 console set. It's starting to get a bit worn out. Little bits and pieces are breaking off here and there, but the engine still runs great. Just had a new clutch put in, the transmission's excellent, so I think I'll still be driving it for a few more years. Anyone up for a little light reading? Here's the volume 2 that I picked up recently, which is the smaller form factor, 8.5 by 11. Maybe smaller height and width, but good lord, that's a thick book. But these are awesome. I mean, just awesome when you're working on old TVs, because not only is there a whole host of information about service tips and alignment notes and whatnot, but the schematics are really cool because they're like huge fold-out maps. I don't have the room to do it right here, but these fold out to like 10 times the size of an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. A little hard to use on a workbench, and I've heard some guys actually just break these apart. You know, I'm sure back then nobody cared because these were, you could just order a new one and you had no problem cutting open the binding. But now that these are getting kind of hard to find, especially volume 1, which I do not have, volume 2 and so on. Well, after volume 2 they switched to this form factor. Nowhere near as thick, but the pages are much larger. The binding's nice though. It looks like you can actually slide this over and open up the binding and take out sections that you want to work on. In fact, I think there's sections in this one missing already, I just noticed. I believe that there are some index volumes, which I don't think I have either, which will aid you greatly in locating which one of these huge books your set might be in, because there are 27 volumes, I think. They're just numbered 1 through 27. There's not even a year on them. I can speculate that the older volumes are the lower numbers, and I know that this covers a lot of like 48 sets, maybe into 49, but once you get into like volume 14, I have no idea what year this might cover. There's volume 6. Like I said, I did not get a whole set. I might even have some duplicates. It was just too much, even with these that I have, and there's still, I think, about 12 or 15 more in my car. I don't know where I'm going to put these. They're not going to fit in my bookcases, and even if they did, they'd probably break the shelves off. So figure something out. But regardless, quite cool to have. I'll talk more about these service manuals and others I have, and where you can get schematics for your TVs and radios in another video. Now on to the more interesting thing, which is these tubes I got. This is the only even semi-intact box I found. The rest are just all scattered over the floor, mixed in with all kinds of debris, broken glass, and just general filth. So I didn't have a whole lot of time. I had to get back to work. I picked out the ones that looked good. Basically the octal ones and the larger octal, like Coke bottle style. And any older tubes, like with four pins on them, like this guy. So just with some random samplings, I've worked with enough tubes I can pretty much just glance at them and know what they are. This is a photo tube. So there's a photoreactive element and then a single wire that comes down. Use those in like Magic Eye doors, or even some projectors to read off the soundtrack. But this is a damper tube. You ever see a tube that looks like this? Got a metal cylinder inside, a mica ring with some little teeth sticking out, with an octal base. These are gas regulator tubes. These are the ones that look really cool, like blue and purple when they're in operation. There's a bunch of those in here. And if you ever see two big plates like this, almost guaranteed to be a rectifier. This is probably a 5U4. Those are always good to grab. Anything old that uses a lot of power, TV, amplifier, they're going to use these. Another gas regulator tube, p1o3. Now, if you ever see a tube that's octal and just has a metal cylinder down the middle and a cap on top, probably a high voltage regulator. This is a 1B3, the most common on any set from the 40s and into the 50s. This is what will rectify the thousands of volts going to the picture tube. And there's an older style. They were a lot longer, but it's the same 1B3 tube. Now, what I'm really hoping to find are some 6SN7s, 6SL7s, 12SN7s, a 6N7, not quite a 6SN7. Those are the dual triodes that are used in a lot of TVs, but the audiophile guys, the guitar amp guys, also like them, so I always have trouble finding them. But here's one, 6SN7. This is the shorter style, it's also a taller version. Of course, I don't know if any of these tubes are any good. Another 6SN7. And this one has the, I think they're referred to as ears, where there's a mica ring on either side. I believe that damps any vibration from getting into the tube elements. Nice to have. See how rusty some of these are from sitting on that grimy floor. 12J7, probably an All-American 5 radio tube. There's 6N7. Can't read the number on that. That's always a drag when you can't see the numbers. Sometimes these numbers are fairly water soluble and they wear off. But a couple tricks. One, just breathe on the tube and and get it foggy, and sometimes you can make out a faint number. Or put it in the freezer for a while, and when you take it out and moisture condenses on it, maybe you can read the number. Or get a little grease on your finger from your forehead or whatnot and smear that across the tube, and sometimes you can reveal the number on there. Let's see. Now if you see a tube like that, where it's got a white cloud inside, unfortunately it means the tube is shot. In fact, you can see the glass is cracked right here. Tubes have what they call a getter in them. That's the shiny metal here, and that's a very reactive metal, be like like potassium or sodium metal. That's a 6SN7. The point of that, or 6SL7, even better. Sorry. The reason they would have this reactive metal in there is if any air molecules are left inside when they seal it off to make the vacuum, the atoms will react with this very reactive metal and get pulled out of the inside of the tube. Well, when a tube loses its vacuum and air gets in there, all that shiny reactive metal turns into a white powder like this. So if you see that, unfortunately, it means your tube is guaranteed to be shot. I'm going to set down the camera for a while and dig through these and resume when I find some more interesting goodies. I've pretty much finished sorting through that first box, and no real surprises, no treasures. The most disappointing thing was that a lot of the tubes are these 6N7 RCAs. I actually had to look it up. I've never heard of one before. It's a dual triode Class B audio amplifier, or you can connect them in parallel and use it to drive, use this Class A to drive an amplifier. I have no use for those, and not particularly valuable, but got a pile here, and there's still more in the box. Also found a nice little pile of those gas regulator tubes. Here's a few casualties I found. These are all TV tubes, generally those high voltage rectifiers, horizontal output tubes. Nice stash of rectifier tubes, 5U4s, a few 5Y3s. Only ones in the old style though. This is a 5U4. I like this ST Coke bottle style better than the more modern looking ones there. Found a nice amount of 6SN7s. Only one 6SL7 though. The reason I'm looking for these is that those 7-inch electrostatic Motorola TVs I showed in another video, they all use these, so I'm always on the lookout for some good ones. These are radio tubes, like All American 5 tubes, like 50L6s and such. I found one potentially nice tube. It's a 6L6, I think. It's a little hard to read the label, but that's a nice audio output tube that can handle a decent amount of power. Just a handful of really old tubes. These are 2X2 ancient high voltage rectifiers, and unfortunately I cannot find a label anywhere on this. I have to ask online. Same with this guy. This might be a Type 30. It looks like it's a moderate power output tube, like maybe for battery sets. That's why I think it might be a Type 30. A few metal tubes, but most of them are really rusty and nasty. And then a bunch of old ham radio tubes, like power output tubes, like this is 836 and some 866 mercury rectifier tubes. I think one of these actually has, yes, one has an X-ray warning. That's how much power these things crank through. I have no use for any of these, but if that's good, maybe I'll try to sell them. Now, on to the milk crate. These are all the tubes I literally was just picking off the floor, and I think there might be some interesting ones in here. For instance, right on top here, got a nice Sylvania 6F6. I have a couple Philco radios that use this for the output. I'm always on the lookout for some good ones. And I believe somewhere buried in here, 5U4 rectifier. Somewhere in here I have a globe tube or two or three. Oh, I did find one other thing. I almost forgot. I found an eye tube. I'm not sure of the type. This one was really dirty and hard to read, but I hope this is a nice strong eye tube because those are hard to find. It's 6Y6, kind of like a 6F6 audio tube. Another 5U4 in their Coke bottle, ST style. This might have gone gassy though. One of the pins or two of the pins are mangled, so I have to do a little surgery on that before I can test it. Alright, so that's an odd looking beast. I think that's what they call a ballast tube. Where it's basically there's just a filament in there and it's just used to burn off excess power. Usually in a series strung set where the wires are wired up like Christmas lights and there just aren't enough tubes to use all the power coming out of a wall outlet. They'd stick one of these tubes in just to burn off power so the tube filaments wouldn't burn out. Oh, I think the good stuff might be a bit further down, so pause the camera for a bit again. I pretty well finished sorting through all the tubes that were in the milk crate, and it's pretty much more of the same. Some more TV tubes, a bunch more All-American 5 type tubes, a few 6F6 and 6Y6 audio output tubes. I did find the globe tubes. I think this is a type 01A. It just says GE on it. These are kind of hard to come by with the brass base and the little stubby pins. I'll have to carefully test that. It won't fit into my tester, but I can use an ohm meter and check for filament continuity for sure. This might be a type 01 as well. I'm not quite sure. I couldn't find a number on it. And this guy is just an RCA UI224, which is just a type 24, one of the more common tube types out there. And I found a few more of the old style radio tubes with 5 and 6 pin bases. But nothing great, no type 45s or type 50s. Those are the more valuable audio tubes. So now for the fun part. I think I'll grab a few of these tubes and test them and see if they actually work. If you're careful, with some glass cleaner and a paper towel, you can clean these tubes up pretty nice without removing the numbers. I just carefully cleaned around it so you can still see the 6F6 on that. And the 6E5 on the eye tube. I'm going to be testing these on my triplet 3413B. You might be wondering why don't I use the Hickok I-177 I just got working, or my Cardmatic. Those are higher quality testers for sure, but they take much longer to set up. And I just want to see if these tubes are dead or have some life left. And this also has the very handy built-in roll. And most important, this device can test damn near any tube. The old tubes, the newer tubes, anything pre-Compactron is most likely in this chart. 56, 23, and 6. Alrighty. One downside to these dirty tubes is These pins are really corroded on some of these tubes, and I had to clean this tube for a while and really wiggle it around before the filament would start glowing. But check that out. That is one really strong eye tube. So one down, several hundred to go. I've been testing more tubes and it's been a real mixed bag. For example, I do believe this is a type 01A tube. It's a type of very early tube that are nice to have, nice brass base and so on. And the filament resistance check is okay, but when I carefully looked inside, I could see that the grid lead was going to nothing. And when I tapped the glass, I could see a little bit of wire floating around inside there. So it'll be a nice display piece. This brass will clean up nice, but otherwise fairly useless. The other one that I thought might be a 01A is actually a type 26. Somebody scratched into the base. And it tests good, but this is a fairly useless tube. So, oh well. I tested a couple of the 6SN7s. They test fine. 5U4 tests fine. Some of these horizontal output tubes for TVs test fine. Type 83 is pretty well shot, unfortunately, because those are worth a bit. The pair of what look like match 6F6s both have blown filaments, so oh well. Anyways, to wrap up this video, I thought I would show you what those gas tubes I was talking about look like. So first up, we've got the type 0A3, which looks like that. Here's 0C3. And finally a type 0D3. That's all for now.